Hello and welcome. I'm Jason Arden. Today I'm with Chris Valdes for my capstone project. You are a Marywood soccer player. What year are you?
Senior.
Senior? All right, so the last year here in college.
Yes, sir.
Can you take me back to when you started playing soccer and why you are motivated to play in college?
So I started playing at 9 years old. My family had moved from a different location. We probably moved like 30, 40 minutes away in Florida. And it was new school and everything for me and my sister. And I made friends with one of my neighbors where I moved to. And I kind of started kicking a ball around with him. And I think it was the first week of school. We had tryouts for soccer at the school, and I never thought twice about playing soccer. And he's like, bro, you should come play. You know, it'd be a good time. We'd do it together. I ended up playing, and I made, I think, the co-ed team, the B team. And I had, like, pretty good season there. And one of the dads who was an assistant coach on the first team, they asked me to play with them, I think, for, like, the rest of the season. And one of the dads is an assistant coach to a travel team. And he was talking to my dad. He said, you should have your kid come try out with us. And then from that point, I made really good friends. And I started playing with that team for, like, probably 5 years until I branched off from then. And then, yeah, I just fell in love with it at that point once I started getting better at it and training a little more serious and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'd say from nine's what really started it, 9 years old, yeah.
You played it through high school and then...
All through high school and then senior year, committed here.
Yeah, so you're from Florida is what you said?
Yeah, from Miami.
So how'd you commit here from Florida?
I had a coach who recruited me, John Velasco. He was in good contact with my high school coach through... I didn't really want to play in college at one point, and he was in contact with my high school coach, and my high school coach was like, hey, I have a college coach that's very interested in you. And, yeah, one thing led to another, and he was at one of my games in Miami and pitched me on a project here, and I loved everything he had to say. And then I came to visit Marywood, and I fell in love with it. And, yeah, I kind of just committed here on the spot pretty late, probably the last one in that class to commit.
Well, if it works, it works.
It works.
Right.
It works,
And he convinced you to play through college. Do you regret that decision, or do you
No,
appreciate
not at
that
all.
you did? Yeah.
Not at all. I love that I came here.
Can you talk about your difference in your college experience versus like your high school experience playing? Is there any differences, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of difference. I mean, college is more fast-paced, a lot more aggressive, which fits my play style perfectly. But high school ball was a lot of fun. I came from a really good program, and we're a very winning program. And then obviously you come here and you have your setbacks with like 3 coaches in 4 different years and a rebuild really. And I think COVID hit us when we finally had the squad to maybe do it. I think we would have done it that year, that COVID year, especially here with what we had. But yeah, the main differences were obviously just the speed of play when you get to college. The height's a big thing too. You start playing guys for like at least lining up together at like 6'4" plus, you know. But definitely just the speed of play.
Speed of play. Have you played in different sports growing up, or has soccer been the only one?
I started out playing baseball competitively. I always played basketball, played some flag football here and there. Yeah, I like to play every sport, but I'd say like probably around 7th, 6th grade, I just stuck with soccer.
Was it like what was your reason for sticking with soccer? Just your love for the sport?
Yeah, no, I really started falling in love with basketball, and then at one point, like when LeBron came to the Heat and we had the big 3 in Miami, I started falling in love with basketball, and I started playing a lot of pickup. But, I mean, obviously I had a coach telling me, like, and I wanted to quit at one point to just, like, solely focus on basketball. And I had a coach pretty much look me in the eye and tell me, like, hey, you're getting pretty good at this sport, and, like, realistically, do you see yourself growing? And I was like, no.
So you just had to go.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to play soccer. I knew soccer was it, though.
So would you say then that there's sports that are more difficult than soccer to play? Like, if we were to take it out, so, like, I'm talking about, like, the differences between sports and similarities. So, like, comparing soccer to other sports, are there any that you think is more difficult?
No, I'm not saying no.
You think soccer's more
because when you think about it, like every other sport, yeah, same motor skills, same technique with your feet, same cutting, same type of running, right? Essentially. Now imagine doing all of that and having to shoot, pass to your teammates, and pretty much dribble and do everything with your feet. There's not one thing you can do with your hands.
Interesting.
Realistically, like in basketball, I can cut and I can run up and down the court, be in great shape. But at the end of the day, like I'm dribbling and I'm passing and I'm shooting and everything's with my hands. A lot easier from up here. When you're playing soccer, like, yeah, it's the same motor skills as every other sport pretty much, but you got to be really technical because you're doing all that I just mentioned. But on top of that, like any pass shot or anything that you need to get off is with your feet. So, I mean, that's how I see it kind of.
That does make sense in a way, yeah.
Yeah.
And then in a similar sense, you mentioned before that there's a lot of similarities between different sports. Do you think there's a sport that's the most similar to soccer that's not soccer?
Basketball has the same purpose. break down a defense, except for play calling, really. But, yeah, breaking down a defense, attacking a goal, a rim. Yeah, it's kind of like the same. It's like you're never off, always turned on. Yeah, that's pretty much the only similarity I could really see.
No other sports? I mean,
Football, I guess, same numbers, 11v11, but not really the same purpose.
okay, I see. So on the opposite end, then, do you think there's any sports that are the most different than soccer? If you had to go on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, now I can go back to football and say the same thing, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, you're tackling each other. There's, like, I guess, a mix of soccer when you look at, like, kickers and punters. Most of them come from a soccer-based background. But similarities and differences, yeah, no.
So we'll take it out to the main question of the whole thing then, and you can be honest with your answer. So
Where's that?
my gallery here showcases the similarities. So I take pictures that are of the same motions from different sports, and what I'm trying to say is that it's fundamentally sports are all very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be honest. Do you agree with that, or do you think that's not true?
Like the fundamentals of every sport, you're saying?
The fundamentals and just like breaking it down, even as like far down to like humans. Like humans were all the same on the inside, even though on the outside things are different. So what do you think about that sentiment?
I think for the most part you hit it there. I think it's just like all fundamental skills and stuff like that. Yeah, it's kind of like the same base you learned growing up, you know. That's like a lot of people always tell their kids, like, yeah, play every sport growing up, you know what I mean? And then, honestly, I saw a podcast the other day. I think it was, I forget what pro was talking to who, and he was like, yeah, I tell all my friends, like, the first sport you should stick your kid in is soccer in terms of, like, gaining, like, basic motor skills and basic footwork and stuff like that, because then it translates into other sports. Mm-hmm. So football, I think, you know, you look at like receivers, or you look at DBs, cornerbacks especially, that footwork that they use to stay tight one-on-one in coverage, that's pretty much like all technique, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But are all fundamentals in sports kind of the same? That was the question again?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think so. I would say so.
All right.
In terms of like basic technique and understanding like the moving in every sport before you can actually go out and ball and do things. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on today. My project opens this Saturday from 12 till 2, so if you want to come,
Perfect.
you're welcome to come.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, brother.